One, welcome to our first webinar for CKEditor. I hope everyone can hear me pretty clearly today. I'm just going to wait a few minutes so we get a few more people logging into our webinar right now. And, we'll get started shortly. So until then, feel free to just hang out for a minute and yeah. Okay, awesome. I will go ahead and get started. I feel like we have a few viewers who've joined us. So I'm Myrna, the Developer Relations Manager at CKEditor, and joined today with one of my colleagues, Goksha, who is the Product Marketing Manager, and she'll help me in the chat answer some of your questions. I will also try to answer some of your questions as we are doing this webinar today. So today we're going to talk about what's new in CKEditor's version 40, and I'm really excited to talk very specifically about the AI Assistant plugin that basically brings the power of ChatGPT's generative AI directly into your rich text editor. So we've designed this to evolve with sort of the changing landscape today of content creation, providing developers with innovative tools to enhance their customers' creative output. So this ultimately, we hope, will empower your users to explore new ideas, generate engaging content, and simply just achieve more efficient results. So today's agenda, let me make myself a little smaller. So today's agenda, very simple. We're going to have a little bit of an overview. I'm going to tell you what we're talking about. Then we're going to dive into generative AI, talk a little bit about what exactly is this thing called GPT, right? How is this important to me and my users? Then we're going to dive into CKEditor 5. What is it? Especially if you've not heard of it before. And then we're going to talk about the AI assistant on CKEditor. I'll run through a quick demo that I have set up locally, and I'll show you how you can probably set it up very quickly on your platform. Then we'll walk through some Q&A, and if you have any questions, me and my colleagues are happy to sort of answer and help you in the right direction. So let's just get started. But before we fully get started, I want to request that everyone here, if you don't already have one, try to sign up for a CKEditor account. You actually get first 30 days like a freemium with all the premium plugins. So you can actually explore, and play around with all the different features. You can also sign up for ChatGPT. The reason this is necessary is because later you're going to need an API key from ChatGPT, which I'll show you how to get in order to kind of get your AI assistant working on your local machine. So, without further ado, let's dive into this topic. Why are we here? Why are we talking about this? So, the media coverage around GPT, GPT-4, generative AI has been both exciting and thought provoking. It has sparked discussions around the ethical implications of AI generated content, the potential impact on creative industries, and just the role in shaping our future. Additionally, the recent news has revealed that 90% of VC backed companies plan to launch generative AI in their products. So, this just highlights the growing interest and investment in leveraging generative AI for various business applications. So, the potential applications of generative AI is really vast because it's creating new content, and it's pretty fascinating. And it's really fascinating to see like 90% of VC backed companies, they're all working on this tool. Then how is it going to shape our world tomorrow, right? And we don't want CKEditor, CK Source to be any behind in this innovation. So, what is generative AI? Well, Generative AI, instead of me telling you what it is, I decided to actually just ask ChatGPT. Explain it to me in like a sentence. And GPT said generative AI refers to a type of artificial intelligence that can generate new content, such as text, images, music, based on like patterns and data that it's learned from existing examples. So the key here is it can generate new content based on existing examples. That's fundamentally what generative AI and GPT are. So a few examples of things that you might have seen in the generative AI space include the famous ChatGPT logo that you see. A few other cases are Claude's, Anthropic's Claude, Bing, Bard, Google Bard. Those are sort of general purpose generative AI use cases. And then there's some specific cases, right? Like Notion, Jasper, Copy AI, and so on and so forth. You also now have CKEditor's very specific case. So those are usually used for specific niches and how you want to apply generative AI. And when we know it's creating new content based on existing examples, but why should we use it? So here are some benefits of generative AI. It increases productivity for your users. It's pretty intelligent and useful in writing suggestions and grammar corrections. I've personally used it on a very regular basis. You can create fresh and innovative content, especially if you have writer's block, if you know kind of where you want things to be. There's also a certain degree to which you can create personalized content based on context. And especially if you're building, for example, in Poland, you want to translate something to English, then there's efficient localization for global audiences. And I think this is the really cool part because generative AI models can translate and adapt content for different languages and cultures, ensuring that content is accurately and sensitively localized for diverse audiences. So I believe this can really reduce time and cost associated with like your traditional translate methods when you're just going to Google Translate and hitting that button. Now, with benefits, there's also some shortfalls. Um, I don't think it's the same across all generative AI tools. It depends. Are you creating new text? Are you creating new images? But there is bias. It's ultimately based on training data. There is going to be biases in generative AI. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be proactive about that. There's going to be inaccurate information. There's a lot of hallucinations that happen within the generative AI space. There is going to be incomplete data because sometimes things like ChatGPT has like a training data cutoff of 2021, and you can't potentially ask it recent events. I'll show you some examples later on. There is going to be some privacy and security concerns around this. There's also, of course, also like the ethical and job market concerns. What is going to happen to my job? But the biggest shortfall, according to me, based on our developments when launching this AI assistant, is really effective prompts. If you are going to integrate this assistant onto your editor, how are you going to make sure that those prompts are actually useful to your end user? There's actually a statistic that the Nielsen Norman Group released about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, where they talked about less than 20% of the developed world actually knowing how to generate useful prompts in order to help their users. So that's sort of like the big shortfalls and challenges of generative AI in general. The next challenge I have for you is to sort of open up ChatGPT and try to stump it, right? Fill up the comments for us, tell us how you are stumping uh, OpenAI. Give me some examples. I will give you some examples after I explain this. But yeah, let's just take some time, do that, and fill in my comments while I'm doing the presentation. And if I see something very cool, I will definitely, pop it onto our main screen. But yeah, try to stump ChatGPT. And for those of you who haven't used it, I'm going to show you a demo soon after. So I've talked about GPT so far, but what is it? Well, to describe to you what GPT is in 15 minutes or less, that's pretty hard, but I'm gonna try. And there's a lot of things that we still don't know, but a good way to approach it is that it first to consider all the things that GPT is known for, right? Well, GPT is first known for as generative pre-training transformer, but it's also called the large language model. In computer science, some people call it universal approximators. We call it generative AI. It, of course, has a neural network. It is artificial intelligent. It is a simulator of culture. It's a text predictor. It's a writing assistant. It's a content generator. It's, of course, if you've been on Twitter recently, you might have seen Twitter Auto GPT, Baby AGI. People are giving these things tools and agents to sort of run free in the wild to interact with the world, computers, and of course, we use them as chatbots. ChatGPT is one, and the actual architecture is a transformer. So generative pre-training transformer is, or GPT is, there's a lot of ways to describe it. And honestly, any one of these ways is a really perfectly adequate way to begin the conversation. But for our purposes today, and for the purposes of the AI writing assistant, let's just think of it as a large language model. And more specifically, just think of it as a language model. So, what is a language model? A language model is a model of language, if you allow me the tautology, but really what it does is it produces a probability distribution over some vocabulary. So, let us imagine that we have the task of predicting the next word of the sequence I am. So, if I give a neural network the words I am, what of all the words in English is the next most likely word to follow? That, at its very core, is what GPT is trained to answer. And how it does this is it has a vocabulary of, let's say, 50,000 words, and it knows roughly, given the entire internet, which words are likely to follow other words. And of those 50,000 words, in some sequence up to 2,000, 4,000, with GPT-4, 32,000 words, can I follow? So let me give you an example, right? In this example, I have the words I am, and I'm going to run it through a series of 50,000 words that I have in the English dictionary. And I come up with the next most probable words in this histogram: happy, sad, school, Bjork. Great. And happy is most likely to follow I am because it seems pretty likely. Sad, another very common word to follow I am. School, probably not likely because you don't usually say I am school. And Bjork is just a very an outlier of a word, and probably no one's going to call themselves I am Bjork. But it's still a possibility, and it's very important to know that's sort of how hallucinations happen. Is some of these probabilities might get tweaked in the front. So if you give this words I am and then you get back I am happy, what happens is you can plug this back into ChatGPT, and it's now going to say into the model, and it's now going to say I am happy today, I'm happy tomorrow. And there's a lot of different ways in which you can think about how I am happy, I am sad can go. And if you add a little bit of randomness to that model, and you keep uh, just reiterating that through the model, all of a sudden you have this language model that just essentially starts writing essays and that can talk and a whole lot of things, which is really unexpected and something we didn't even predict a few years ago. And this sort of magic and all of this is relevant because, yes, great, I can predict words and I can write models, but why does this matter to me? Why does GPT matter? Well, it's because as we scale up this model and we give it more compute, which we got around 2012 with like the convolutional neural networks and GPUs, we realize that we can download a lot of information from the internet, and it learns more and more and more. And the probabilities that it gives you gets better because it has more examples. So we have to train the model to be really large. And that's why we get the term large language model, really wide. And we have to train it to for a really long time, which is why some of these models haven't been updated since like 2021. And as we do that, the model actually gets more and more better and expressive and capable. And it also gets a little bit intelligent for reasons actually we truly don't understand today. And the issue is that we also need to realize that these models just learn to replicate the internet. So it knows how to speak a lot of different genres of text and a lot of different registers. So if you begin the conversation, and let me just give you a little bit of history, like GPT-3, right, when it first came out, if you begin the conversation like, can you explain the moon landing or explain the moon landing to a 6-year-old in a few sentences, GPT-3 just kind of imitated that and said, okay, the next most probable sentence to follow that sentence is explain the theory of gravity to a 6-year-old, explain theory of relativity to a 6-year-old. And that actually makes sense. That's what GPT is fundamentally trained to do, predict the next best thing. But that's not really useful to us, right? And that's not the question we're asking. And GPT-3 actually didn't know we were asking questions. It was just predicting the next best thing. So that's when this is actually linked to OpenAI, but the scientists at OpenAI came up with a solution that we know as ChatGPTs today. They said, let's give the model a whole bunch of questions and answers. So we first train the model on the internet, then we train it on a whole bunch of questions and answers such that it has the knowledge of the internet, but really knows that it has to be answering questions. And that is how ChatGPT was born. And that's when it sort of gained 100 million followers in 1 month. It beat TikTok's record, and it became a huge thing. And because people went, oh, this is an intelligent thing because I can ask it questions, it answers back, and we can work together to come to a solution. And that's because it's still fundamentally predicting words. It is still a language model, but it knows to predict words in the framework of a question and answer. So that's essentially what a prompt is. And that's what instruction tuning is. And that's why this is very important. The reason I wanted to walk through the history and make you understand the fundamentals is really because prompting is key to ChatGPT and language models that are coming out today because the types of models that are coming out today and the language predictors, they all operate in this Q&A form. And that is very much why we need to focus on the types of prompts we provide to our end users. So, tuning the model, honestly, what you need to know is tuning the model into an agent into which to achieve any ambiguous goal is where the future is going. And that is all thanks to prompt engineering and instruction tuning. And that is kind of where we sit as well. So, ChatGPT is amazing. It's very cool, but what are its limitations, right? Before we ask you to plug this in to your editor, we want to understand what are the limitations. Well, for one, there's a training data cutoff. Uh, ChatGPT only knows things up until 2021, September of 2021, or now January 2022. So if I ask it who's the current monarch of the UK, it says, hey, as of my last knowledge, it's Queen Elizabeth, but we all know it's King Charles. So we know that data is not accurate. We know the response is not accurate. So it's really important to know that all responses from ChatGPT, especially recent events or developments, are not going to be accurate. Two, hallucinations. It can invent facts when answers are unknown. So CK Source actually only has one founder, and that founder is Federico Caldera Naban. And when I asked this, that it just sort of came up with another word and said, hey, the company was also founded by this person, and not really sure kind of how it came up with that answer. So it's a very interesting fact. And the third thing that we really need to know about GPT is handling sensitive data. Yes, it's very useful writing tool, but that doesn't mean you put in proprietary information. The best example I like to give developers and users and customers alike is if you're not going to put things like your social security, your passport number, your passport images into Google, then you're not probably going to put it into ChatGPT. And this is an example of a place where one of Samsung's developers sort of just copy pasted in very highly confidential code and secrets into ChatGPT that were then generated for as examples for other users in the model. So very interesting example how your data can be handled and how you need to handle these things. So with that said, I've iterated that the most important thing in ChatGPT is the prompts, and making these prompts useful for your users will actually give you best results. So from some of the 5 best practices for prompts is more instruction gives better results. The more specific you are about the format and the length, it's going to give you a more useful results, right? Always provide ChatGPT with the parameters of what you want to receive back. Write a blog post about cars and how they will evolve in the next decade. That's a very generic kind of example. But imagine if you said, hey, I want this to be 800 to 1,000 words and I want it to be formatted as HTML, then you get a more useful response. The third thing is write for your target audience, right? ChatGPT attempts to write for a high school reading level and generally tries to explain topics from scratch. It fundamentally assumes people don't have deep knowledge. But let's say your rich text editor is in a law firm and lawyers sometimes already know their topic, right? They're just trying to get briefs on things. For optimal results, you want to say that, hey, this is someone who already knows this topic. Can you please elaborate in this specific things? In this specific thing. So may basically say, right, for a lawyer, right, for an audience who has already attended law school and is aware of all of these technical things. Um, and I want you to, only focus on this scope of that technical topic. So it's very important to mention what type of audience. So ChatGPT is not trying to write everything from scratch and explaining things they already know. Provide a persona. That's number four. So for your content to really appeal to your target audience, sometimes it's very useful to provide the persona of that audience identifies with. So simply even providing the persona at the beginning of your prompt and any additional instructions you want to follow has shown a lot of successes. And finally, including SEO keywords can be very useful, especially if you're asking your thing to explore the browse the web, right? It can get you a little bit more accurate and useful results than just sort of putting in a prompt and hoping for the best. So that's sort of five best practices for useful prompts. There's a lot more that you can do with prompts and OpenAI. We will cover that soon in another webinar. But for now, let's kind of jump in. And as promised, I want to talk to you about CKEditor. So CKEditor is a modern, rich JavaScript rich text editor with a pretty modular architecture. It is the latest version in the CKEditor series. It's known for its flexibility and extensibility, and some of the things that really make CKEditor in general stand out are how customizable and extensible it is. It has a lot of modern framework integrations. As a full stack developer, I know how important it is to be able to integrate with your React projects, your Angular projects, your Vue projects, and it makes it a really versatile choice as an rich text editor. One of the really most highly used things about CKEditor is this Google Docs like experience that it provides. It supports real time collaborative editing, and it enables multiple users on the same document. And you can simultaneously do things, and I will show you in a future example how you can even use the rich text editor with the AI assistant while collaborating and editing other parts of the document. Have a quick video for you on that as well. And, outside of that, it does have your traditional rich text features like styling, lists, images, and tables. CKEditor 5 also simplifies image uploads, and it includes features like image resizing, text wrapping around images. It has a really important security aspect because security is a key aspect when you are considering a rich text editor. So it's designed to protect against common vulnerabilities. And the editor is available in numerous languages, making it suitable for international projects. So overall, CKEditor is a really cool modern approach to web text editing. It offers very customizable and user-friendly rich text editor tool for developers and their end users. So, talked a lot about the editor. Finally, we're here at the AI assistant. What does the AI assistant do? Some of the key features. The first thing, you can write and use prompts. So, we have these ready to use prompts where you can select your text and ask AI assistant to change the tone and style, fix grammatical errors, summarize, and a lot more. These are all pre written. And as we said earlier, research from the Nielsen Norman Group shows that pre-written prompts return more useful responses from generative AI apps, and they're actually more likely to increase your AI usage amongst your users. So I would highly recommend sort of, even when you're building this, to build for your users and engineer them on your own. We also, of course, have the freeform prompt input. It's kind of your the provides this GPT-like experience that you're already used to, where you can type within the text box over here, and you can hit replace, insert below, try, retry again, and things like that. So very cool use case for that. The second thing that we have with the AI writing assistant is, let me talk a little bit more about like the pre-written prompts behind the scenes. If you're ever wondering like what is going on here when we say improve writing, right? This is how we've kind of engineered our prompt. We say, hey, instruction, fix spelling mistakes, use proper grammar, and apply good writing practices. Do not lose the original meaning. You must keep the formatting. Content, we're putting it in a paragraph. So this content is if you select a specific if you highlight a specific text and say improve writing, then it passes along the context for that. Else, this is the instruction that it follows to ChatGPT when you say improve writing over a specific piece of text. So that's kind of showing you how we engineer our pre-written prompts. It's pretty simple, very concise. It tells you exactly the instructions on what you want it to do, how you want to do it, while keeping our prompts pretty casual as well. The next thing, ooh, this is interesting. Well, what is a demo without some little technical difficulties? But the next thing is combining AI with collaboration. And let me actually pull it up on our AI assistant um, webpage, I believe. Yeah, so I'm going to share this tab instead. And I hope everyone can see that this is sort of how you can combine AI with a collaboration first rich text editor. So essentially, what you can do is while you're editing, let's say person UP was editing at the same time, you can see that MC is able to, at the same time, edit their doc while UP is sitting here writing something using their AI assistant. So they can simultaneously edit the same rich text editor document and collaborate with colleagues on the same document in real time. And that's sort of where it's very powerful. And yes, you can use the AI assistant in real time while collaborating as well, which makes that extremely cool. So, um, once I'm done with technical difficulties, I'll share this tab again. So, the last kind of feature, we've talked about prompts, we've talked about predefined prompts that are available, we've talked about the fact that the AI assistant can work with real time collaboration. And the final really cool piece of this AI assistant is the query history. So, the AI assistant has a custom query field and a dedicated history button that gives you access to all of the previous queries that you have typed in. Sometimes, you can type in a bunch of queries and you can say, oh, the one that I used 3 queries ago was a really good prompt. What was that? So it gives you a really useful way to sort of reuse and improve recent queries. The history is actually stored in the browser's session storage, and the session storage is actually separate for each browser tab. So just know that if you do close your tab, your uh, query history is cleared. Another way to clear the query history, maybe there's a lot of queries that you've typed in at this point. Then you can just hit clear and it will clear your query history in that drop down as well. So, how can you get started? Very simple. I'd recommend adding your AI assistant to your installation in your current project. It's a very simple plugin. I'll walk you through the steps on how to do that. You can use your open API key to sort of connect to this. Let's see. And what else? You can customize and preset some of the prompts. And then the final thing is the demo I'm going to show today is not set up with a server-side proxy, but in your production application, if you do want to set it up, highly recommend setting it up using a server-side proxy. So very quickly, before I show you my demo, I'm going to ask everyone to go to platform.openai.com. Um, let's see. Yeah, so why doesn't everyone just go to platform.openai.com? You'll see something like this, and what I want you to do is navigate to your side toolbar, and what you should get is an API key, and then you should be able to get your API key by just creating a new secret key and using that information. So that's where you can get your OpenAI key is by just going to platform.openai.com and doing that. Then what I would request everyone do, and I'm actually gonna if you're looking on where you can find that, I'm going to post that in our chat over here. I'm also going to ask you to go back and try to check out our demo, which is in our CKEditor docs. Um, Here you go. This is our demo. Highly recommend that you check it out. But let me show you my own personal demo, which includes a little bit of code. Nothing too impressive, very basic kind of setup, but just to kind of give you a quick overview on how we set it up. So let me share my screen. Um, Share screen. Awesome. So here I have demo HTML set up, and what it does is, you basically have a very simple HTML setup with your CKEditor 5 instance. I load my CKEditor with the create function. You can all see this kind of sample code. I took it directly off of the getting started code that you get on the website. You can set up all the basic things that comes with it. And then finally, over here, just like you would add revision history or CK box, you're going to add AI Assistant. Once you add AI Assistant, you're going to add this API URL. Here, I'm passing along the endpoint for OpenAI, but ideally, when you're building this for your project, you're going to pass along your server-side endpoint, which would then take and connect. I'm also passing in my authorization key, which of course I'm not going to show you on the webinar today. And I'm also going to add in a few extra commands like translate to Polish and transformation, like add an emoji at the end of based on a sentence. We're going to look at that. And then finally, adding my license key that you can find on ckeditor.com once you sign up for the thing. So that's sort of the setup. It's very simple to kind of quickly add the AI system. We take care of everything in the background. As I said, it's a pretty modular architecture. So you don't have to do much other than sort of setting up your AI assistant, adding your API URL, and any extra commands. This is sort of where we do the prompt engineering. If you want to add your own custom prompts, you add a specific command and you add it in a specific group and say, hey, this is the prompt I want to pass. As you can say, translate to Polish language is a pretty simple prompt, but then if you want something very specific like adding emojis, then you have to specify how you want ChatGPT to do that. So very quickly sharing how we set this up in the code. And yeah, so let's open up my browser very quickly. And I will show you exactly what I have set up. So here, it basically set this all up based on the code I showed you earlier. This is a starter code that is available for you on the CKEditor website as soon as you sign up for our freemium trial. And yeah, let's just kind of get started with this, right? So you can see the AI Assistant plugin is sort of at the top of the toolbar. And let me ask it a very quick question. So write an email thanking everyone for attending the CKEditor 5's AI Assistant webinar. And I quickly hit enter, and voila. With formatting, this editor is kind of giving you that ChatGPT-like experience. It's streaming the entire thing. You can copy it if you want, if you don't want to like specifically enter it. But for now, because it is a blank editor, I'm just going to say insert below. I think it looks good to me. Maybe do that for a very quick thing. And let's see. Here, maybe I think I need to add a little bit more, right? Then I can go up here and I can just say, hey, make this a little longer for me. And you can quickly see how the AI assistant sort of is helping me in the text, sort of add valuable information. I can ask it to replace that. And this whole thing, it's starting to look like a very put together email. Maybe I need to add a few social media links and, the slides to the presentation. And it's probably like good to send soon. Um, so that's sort of like a quick overview. Now, let's say, I go back and that's not exactly what I want to type. I actually want to change it. I can go back to the prompt history, click on the prompt that I originally wrote, write an email thanking everyone for attending, and I can maybe specify who I'm thanking developers for attending ChatGPT, make sure it is 500 words. And if I do that, you can see very quickly how it will type all of this in and stream it. Very quick process to sort of go back to your prompt and edit it. Streamlines it pretty quickly. I can insert it, and maybe this is a little bit better. And as you can see, I said it hallucinates sometimes. We never had a Dr. Sarah Smith, so I can sort of delete that. You do have to check what you're providing it. And sometimes if you provide it with more specific details, like this was the agenda, this is what happened, then your email can be better. So it's a very quick overview of how we set it up, but as you can see, it's a very quick setup. It's not too different. It's nothing like very different from what you already know to exist within CKEditor, and quick to sort of plug and chug. So I have talked a lot. And what I'm going to quickly do is share a few more resources with you. I highly recommend that you go check out our GitHub. You can also find out a little bit more about the ChatGPT in this ChatGPT 101 tutorial that I really love to reference. If you want to check out our AI assistant, the links are in the slide. The link was also in the chat. We also have the CKEditor AI Assistant docs as well as the demo available on the slides. I'll post the link to the slides after this in the description of this video as well. So thank you so much. I'm Renessa Ghosh, Developer Relations Manager. Would love to hear from you. Would love to hear some feedback from you on our product. If you have anything, please let us know. Thank you so much for coming to the webinar. I will hang around for any more questions for another 2 minutes. So if any of you all have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. If not, it was really nice to host this webinar and to engage with a few developers on the platform. Sweet. Awesome. So it looks like there's not too many questions. If you do have any questions that pops up after, we will be constantly monitoring this video on YouTube. So please do leave us some questions and, definitely let us know how you felt. Again, Renessa Ghosh here. It was very nice to meet you all. And I hope this was a helpful webinar for you to sort of get started with our very exciting new AI assistant and CKEditor. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.